Hey, it's Kelly with citruscycles.ca. I'm here with the AES series of e-bikes. They're custom made in Germany by Velo de Ville. These e-bikes are the perfect all-around e-bike that can comfortably and safely handle almost anything and any terrain or any purpose. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the main features of the AES series. I'm going to provide a quick comparison of the different models available. I'll talk about why we really like Velo de Ville, and after all that, I'll do a deep dive through all the specs of the bike. Then I'll provide you some even more details about Velo de Ville, and then of course comes the ride test. I'm going to show you how it is the perfect all-purpose bike. So this video is going to be pretty long, so I'll do a quick summary to start, but feel free to skip around. You can jump to the ride test if you want. During the ride test, I'll give you my impressions of the bike while I ride it. Now, if you're located in Canada, you can find all the details on our website at citruscycles.ca. There you'll find pricing. You can order online for shipping within Canada, schedule an appointment to come try it out, or reach out with any questions that you have. If you're not located in Canada, please contact Velo de Ville directly, as we won't be able to assist you. So what is the AES? Well, the A stands for all around, which means that we think of it as a everything bike. It means it's accessible and convenient, so you can jump on and ride to work instead of driving your car, or run errands, or commute. It's comfortable enough that you could ride it all day if you want to go on a tour or an adventure. And it's stable and capable for off-road riding, so challenging rides on forestry trails or single track, so you can go anywhere you want and explore without worrying if your bike can handle it or not. It's also low maintenance by using high quality bike parts to ensure reliability, and an overall lower cost of ownership. In other words, it is an all-round bike that can handle pretty much anything you want to throw at it. So we talked about what the A means. Of course, the E tells us that it's an electric bike, and the S tells us that it is using a Shimano Steps mid-drive motor and Shimano battery, of course. And I'll talk about the Shimano mid-drive motor and its benefits in a little bit. But for now, I should let you know that what we love about Shimano is that it is a well-known bike brand. So you can easily get parts or service or anything else you need at pretty much any bike shop anywhere in the world and well into the future. Now, a mid-drive motor, again, I'll go through all the details later, but it does have the benefit of having the weight low and in the middle of the bike instead of the rear tire like a hub motor would be. That means without a motor in the rear, it's pretty easy to change a flat tire. And since the motor is helping you turn the chain, that's how your bike is normally propelled, so it feels really natural. It's very smooth and very responsive. Now you'll notice all four of these bikes are different. We've got quite a few here in the store. And so we actually have three different models of the AES series available. We've got the AES 400, the AES 900, and the AES 990. I'll discuss the exact differences between the models later, but really it comes down to the AES 400 has Shimano's E6100 motor with 60 Newton meters of torque, and with the 900 or the 990, we're going with the Shimano EP8 motor. The EP8 motor gives you 85 Newton meters of torque versus the 60 Newton meters of torque on the E6100 on the 400 series. That means you get about 40% more assistance when you're climbing the hills. 400 here and the 900 do use an externally mounted battery. This is great because it gives you three different battery capacities to choose from, all the way up to the 630 watt hour, and it's really easy to swap or bring a spare. Now the 990 has a sleek look of a 630 watt hour battery integrated into the frame, and there's a lot of other upgrades such as a better suspension fork, GPS enabled display with offline maps, high beam, and quite a few other upgrades on it, and I'll talk about those later in the video. Now with the 400 and the 900 models, we do have two different frame styles. So we do have the wave or a step through and the unisex that does have the top tube there. With the 990, we do just have the one frame style, which is the wave or the step through. Now comfort is really important, and so with the AES series we've got a really comfort oriented frame design, so you're in a nice upright relaxed riding position. All of the bikes are going to come with a suspension seat post of some sort, of course a suspension fork as well with a decent amount of travel to help smooth out the ride and give you more control over the bike, make sure that it's again very comfortable. And we're going to have an adjustable angle stem, really comfortable grips, lots of things to make it really comfortable, including the comfortable saddle as well. Capability is important to us, so we're going to go with a nice, wide, highly puncture-resistant tire, either a smooth one or a knobby one. Either way, we want you to have lots of traction, control, and stability so that you can ride gravel, pavement, forestry roads, anywhere you want to go. We're also going to make sure we've got a good heavy-duty frame design so that you can actually go anywhere you want to go without worrying about the frame being too flexy, which can cause handling problems. You just want a bike that's going to last a really long time, and that's the beauty of the Velo de Villes and the quality of a German-made bike. Another really cool feature of the Velo de Ville is you do have a couple drivetrain options. So on the AES 400 here, you can go with a conventional drivetrain that's got a chain, cassette, and derailleur like you're used to. But if you don't mind spending a little bit more and saving a lot in the long run at a lower cost of ownership, we can go with an Enviolo continuously variable transmission. That means the chain is completely enclosed, so we don't have to worry about cleaning and oiling it. It's in many ways a similar benefit to a belt, but it's got a lower upfront cost and lower cost of maintenance. It doesn't have to be replaced nearly as often as a conventional chain and a conventional drivetrain, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. I get pretty excited about it, so I'll go into all the details a little bit later, but in the meantime, another benefit of the CVT back here, of course, everything's enclosed, there's nothing exposed, so a lot less maintenance and adjustment. But another really cool thing is that you can shift while you're stopped. So this is the little shifter there. It's really cool. If I twist this way, even though we're not riding, I can make it easier to pedal. See, the cyclist is going up a hill now, so it's easier to pedal. If I need to be harder to pedal, just twist towards me, gets flatter, now it's harder to pedal. And I can do that while we're stopped. Of course, with a traditional trigger shifter, we can't do that. The bike has to be in motion. And again, I'll talk more about that later and why I'm excited about it, but it's also infinitely variable. There's no clicking of gears. It's incredibly smooth, and you can choose exactly how hard or easy you want it to be to pedal, both while you're stopped and while you're pedaling. I mentioned we wanted this bike to be convenient, so we've got things like a rack time compatible rack on the back here. And of course we want you to be safe, so we're going to have some nice bright lights up front and on the back. On some of the models here we even have brake lights, so when you slow down or stop, the light's going to get a little bit lighter. On the 990 we even have a high beam setting. All the bikes, of course, we have Shimano hydraulic disc brakes, which is really important for stopping. We've got some great options for bells here to keep you safe on the trails and other riders. There's the fancy nog bell. You know, pretty much everything you need. Puncture resistant tires. Hey, we've even got a lock built into the bike that's a frame lock. I'll go through the details on that a little bit later, but it's going to lock the rear wheel, and there's an optional chain to secure it to an object. The cool thing, again, convenience. Key we use for that lock is the same key that we use for the battery, so you just need one key for the whole bike. So really the name all around is really appropriate. These are fantastic bikes. I'm going to show you how comfortable they are in the ride test. I'm going to explain a little bit about Velo de Ville right now, but after that I'm going to dive into all the details of the bike. So before I delve into the detailed specs and explain the differences between the AES 400 and the 900 in great detail, I do want to briefly mention why we love Velo de Ville so much. Well, when you buy a Velo de Ville, you are buying a bike that was made to our custom specifications. So it comes with the ideal components that we want, the ergon grips, for example, and all those comfort and safety features that are important to us. But it's also made in Germany by people that are treated well, a company that is committed to community and sustainability. And I'll talk more about this later in the video, but it isn't just talk. They actually care. They hire people with disabilities and from multiple countries to support immigrants. They work tirelessly to ensure that they and their partners are reducing emissions. And they're passionate about high quality bikes, and this shows when you come and ride the bike. Now that you've had an overview of the features of the bike and why we like Velo de Ville, I'm going to dive into all the details and differences between the models. You may want to skip over to the ride test and then come back here if you wish. So I'm going to start by explaining some of the common features in the AES series and then start explaining the differences in the models. It can be a bit confusing at first, so you can head to our website at citracycles.ca. You'll notice the AES 400, 900, and 990 all have their own page, and on that page there is a list of editions at the top that will give you the edition, the size, and the color that are still available. Later in the page you'll find the complete specs for each of the editions, and of course choosing an edition will show you the price. Keep in mind the price is in Canadian dollars and we can ship fully assembled right across Canada. If you're outside of Canada though, you'll need to contact Velo de Ville for more details since each of these bikes is actually custom made. Okay, so I mentioned the S in the AES tells us that we are using the Shimano motor. The Shimano steps, either the E6100 or the EP8. Now, the great thing about a mid-drive motor is that the motor is helping you turn the chain instead of simply pushing the rear wheel along like a hub motor would. This means that when you change to an easier gear, whether it be through the Enviolo continuously variable transmission here or with a conventional chain cassette and derailleur, the motor, since it's helping you turn the chain, is now also in an easier gear. That means you've got a transmission married to your motor, so you go to an easier gear to climb a hill. Now your motor is also in an easier gear. It also is going to be way more efficient if you think about driving your car with a single gear instead of using your transmission. Your fuel economy would not be very good. So with the mid-drive motor, we do have very good fuel economy, very good range. Because it's helping you turn the chain, it's very smooth, it's very responsive because the Shimano system does have an integrated, very sensitive torque sensor. Okay, so what's a torque sensor? Why do you care? Well, the torque sensor is basically listening to what you're doing. It's paying attention to how hard you're pedaling. So as soon as you put pressure on the pedals, the torque sensor recognizes you're pedaling and you get the assistance right away. There's no delay. If we didn't have a torque sensor, then it would take a while before the motor would start because it will wait till the crank arms are turning. With the torque sensor, as soon as you put pressure on the pedals, you get the assistance right away. That's important because we don't have a throttle, and we don't want a throttle if we can avoid it. It's completely unnecessary because you do get the assistance right away. So even on a really steep hill, if you start from a standstill, and I'll show you that in the test ride video, as soon as you put pressure, you get the assistance right away. That's why typically on a less expensive bike, we'll have a throttle in order to help you get started. But you can't ride an e-bike with throttles in provincial parks and here in BC and national parks and a lot of municipalities. A lot of places are saying, let's avoid having the throttle for safety reasons, and it avoids trail conflict. So with the Shimano system, we don't have a throttle, but we don't need it. As long as you can put a little bit of pressure, you'll get the assistance right away. And of course, if you put the assistance up on high, you don't really have to pedal that hard. You just have to keep those crank arms turning. The other benefit of a torque sensor is that if you just bump the pedals because you're on a trail, you're not going to get a big surge of power like you might with a hub motor with a cadence sensor where all it knows is you're pedaling or not pedaling. This knows exactly how hard you're pedaling and matches that power accordingly. I've talked a little bit about the benefits of going with a Shimano motor. Of course, it's a well-known bike brand. Pretty much every bike shop deals with Shimano. That means it's easily serviceable anywhere. And one of the things I like is that we are using a Shimano battery. It's not made by Velo de Ville. That means well into the future, should you need a replacement, you'll be able to get that. And again, you should be able to get that pretty much any bike shop because every bike shop deals with Shimano. Another feature I really like about the Shimano motors is they're actually quite quiet. The the E6100 especially, pretty much never hear it. The EP8 is going to be a little bit noisier on turbo, for example. You'll hear that in the video, but on the E6100, it's actually very, very quiet. With the Shimano system, whether it be the E6100 or the EP8, we do have 3 levels of assistance. So we're going to have Eco, that's the first level of assistance. Gives you tremendous range and just a little bit of assistance from the bike, and I activated that by pressing the top button here to move up to Eco. You'll see that on this bike, the light here turned blue, and the display flashed Eco and tells us that we've got a level of assistance used there. Now, second level is normal. We turn green, flashes normal. You can see it's filled up the bars all the way to the top now when I go to high, and this turns yellow, and of course it tells us high. On the EP8, it's a similar idea. We're just pressing the up and down button here to adjust the level of assistance. We have Eco. On the EP8, the second level is called Trail, which is the dynamic adaptive mode, which is really cool. It's going to adjust accordingly to how hard you're pedaling. And then when you want full power, we go to boost. And again, we've got those lights there. We've got the indicator here, and it tells us there as well. So it's very informative. One of the other cool things we can do, especially with the EP8, although both the E6100 and the EP8 allow us to connect through Bluetooth, so you can download a couple different Shimano apps. One app you can download replaces the display if you wish, although you could use both. It gives you all the information on your phone, including some directions and mapping. And the other one, especially useful on the EP8 here, because on the EP8 motor, we can actually go through and customize the settings. So on the EP8, you can see it's actually a little bit smaller and lighter as well compared to the E6100. In addition to that extra torque, it also means that there's different settings that we can customize. So you could say on Eco, out of the default setting, maybe increase the assistance level. On Trail, decrease it. You can make those changes and save it. And in fact, you can even use 2 different profiles. So you could have a profile for long distance, which is going to have less assistance on, say, Trail and Eco, and then a profile for shorter rides where you want more assistance. It's up to you. You can change it on the fly. Now with the Shimano batteries here, we can charge on or off the bike. The charging port is actually on the battery, which is quite clever. We've got this protective little cover here to keep it protected from the elements, and you just plug the charger in there. The bike does come with a 2-amp charger. Shimano does make a 4-amp charger that we can upgrade you to as well, which is going to charge twice as fast as if you wish. Now, of course, you can charge after every ride. There's no memory or anything like that. And of course, you can also use the key, take the battery off the bike, and charge it inside if you wish. One of the reasons why we went with this externally mounted display instead of the internally mounted display on the 990 here is because the battery format is actually the same between the 418 watt hour, 504 watt hour, and 630 watt hour. So this is the 630 watt hour, and we can swap it with the 504 on here or the 418 over there, because the only difference here is this one's a little bit fatter, but the overall length is the same, so it's easy to adjust them. So if you wanted to adjust to a 630, no problem, you just swap it out. You don't have to make any changes to the bike. And of course, it'd be really easy to bring one of these along as a spare. When we go with the 990, we did integrate the battery into the frame. It's a really nice look. So of course we went with the high capacity 630 watt hour. With the integrated batteries, we can't switch sizes. So if you want to go with a smaller size battery, the battery itself is smaller. It's not going to fit in the frame. So of course we decided to go with the highest capacity battery. You can see that's fairly long. So it'll be a longer battery if you want to bring it as a spare. Fortunately, this cover here is actually mounted on the frame and not on the battery. So I can press that, pull the cover off, and put a spare battery in. I don't have to put a new cover on the battery. A lot of bikes we find they tend to have a cover mounted to the battery, and then you have to buy a spare cover in addition to the spare battery. So it's nice, you can easily just swap that over if you wish. I'm talking a lot about spare batteries, but realistically it's pretty much unnecessary now with these high capacity batteries. So for example, Shimano does give you a very accurate range calculator that you can use on the display or on the app to see exactly how much further you can go. It's going to dynamically adjust as you ride, but on the E6100 motor with a 418 watt hour battery, you could easily get 100, 120, maybe even more on Eco. With a 630 watt hour battery, you're talking 150 to 200 kilometers on Eco, no problem. Of course, you may want to ride on normal or trail instead of Eco, so that you're not on the low assistance, or you may have big hills or strong winds, so your range is going to vary. All right, so let's talk about the transmission. On the AES 400, we have the option of a conventional drivetrain or the Enviolo CVT. With the AES 900 or the 990, we only have the option of the Enviolo CVT. Now, before I get too excited about that CVT, the conventional drivetrain on the AES 400 is a 9-speed Shimano Enviolo with a chain guard fully enclosed there, which is quite nice. We do have the visual indicator of the gear that you're in up here on the display, and of course you've got the trigger shifters. Pushing will make it easier to pedal, pulling the other one will make it harder to pedal. Now, we do like having the Enviolo from Shimano. It is a bit of an upgrade from some of the entry-level shifting, which means that it works quite well and doesn't require a lot of adjustment and seems to last quite well. But if you don't mind spending a little bit more money up front, then you can upgrade to the Enviolo CVT. That's going to save you money in the long run and is incredibly smooth and easy to use. The conventional drivetrain, you can really only shift while you're pedaling, right? Because the chain is has to kind of jump up and down the gears here, and that can only happen when the chain is moving. Sometimes that means things go out of adjustments, and so it doesn't shift when you want it to, and it shifts when it's not supposed to, or it shifts gears, or the chain falls off. Those are all terrible things and really frustrating. And of course, everything's exposed here. So you have to clean the chain, oil it, clean the cassette and the jockey wheels and the derailleur and all those kinds of things. And of course, they are wear items with the chain jumping up and down there. And especially if you don't clean it frequently, it's going to wear out and need to be replaced. With the Enviolo continuously variable transmission here, we've basically solved all of those problems. As you can see, it's completely enclosed. There's no maintenance, no adjustment, and the chain is not going to fall off. You can shift while you're stopped. So if you're cruising along in your top gear, you stop suddenly, either somebody cut you off or you weren't paying attention or whatever, no problem. We can go ahead and shift gears to an easier gear to get started. With a conventional drivetrain, of course, you can't shift while you're stopped. So that's a huge feature on the CVT. It's also infinitely variable between the highest and the lowest gear. So if you've had that happen where you're climbing a hill, you shift to an easier gear, oh, it's too easy. Okay, go back to the hard gear. Oh, it's too hard. You wish you had something in between? No problem. With the Enviolo CVT, we do have everything in between. Now, I should mention that you can shift, of course, while you're stopped and while you're pedaling. But if you're pedaling really, really hard up a very steep hill and try to twist this, it may be harder to twist. So if you ease off a little bit on your pedaling, then it's going to be a lot easier. While we're stopped, we only have a certain range that we can shift here. But while the bike is moving, I could make that a lot steeper. And that's fine, because usually when you're stopped and wanting to shift, you don't have to shift all the way from the highest to the lowest gear. That's something that you can do very easily while you're riding. But the benefits of low maintenance, have you noticed that you actually can't even see the chain on this bike? It's completely enclosed by this chain glider, which is really, really cool. So it means it's going to protect the chain. You don't have to worry about cleaning and oiling it very often. In fact, for some of our customers, they just find they bring it in once a year for a tune-up. We take care of it for them, no problem. Now, it is a chain in there. It's really easy to access. Unlike, say, some of the Gazelles where they've got a full chain guard that's completely enclosed, a chain case, and it's mounted on the frame, and you don't want to talk to our mechanics about that. It takes them forever to try to get that off and access the chain. This is really easy. This is actually just two parts here, the front part and the back part. This just releases, and it's just floating on the chain. It's not even mounted on the frame at all. So it's really easy to get it off. So if you do want to clean and oil it, or you need to replace the chain, because the chain is a wear item, and from time to time it will need to be replaced, not nearly as frequently as when you've got a cassette and the chain's jumping up and down and it's exposed. Over here, because it's enclosed, it's well protected, and it's not jumping up and down. So we expect this chain to last a really long time. Now, we could have went with a belt, and that's certainly a possibility. That adds a fair bit to the price, so it is a bigger upfront investment. And sometimes people are concerned because belts maybe aren't something that are sold at every bike shop. In fact, belts can be a little bit tricky because they're all different sizes. So here in our store, we have lots of belts in stock of lots of different sizes, but not everywhere does that. So if you're a little bit concerned about replacing a belt, the benefit here of the chain is you're getting the advantages of the low maintenance and low cost of ownership like a belt. But should something happen to your chain, it needs to be replaced, no problem. Pretty much every bike shop is going to have a chain that can replace it for you. Or if you're handy yourself and somehow you break your chain, if you have a master link and a chain tool, no problem. Even out on the trail, you can actually fix the chain, not a worry. If you break your belt while you're out riding, unless you have a spare belt, you're not going to be able to fix that. So there are some really cool features to having a chain that is completely enclosed. So no matter which model or edition you get of the AES, we wanted the bikes to be very comfortable. That means that in addition to the comfort-oriented frame design, which puts you in a nice, relaxed, upright riding position, all of the components are focused on comfort as well. So we've got these ergon grips here. You can adjust the angle, of course, and these are just perfectly designed to avoid pins and needles and fatigue that you sometimes find. So again, since they're custom made, why don't we get them from the factory with what we want instead of getting cheaper grips, throwing them out and putting something good on. These are all going to have an adjustable angle stem, so you can really dial in that fit. We've got a bit of sweep on the handlebars here, again, to put you in that nice, upright, relaxed riding position. We're going to go with comfortable saddles. We're going to have a suspension seat post as well. And speaking of comfort, the tires can actually make a difference as well. We're going to have nice, wide tires to give you lots of stability, confidence when you're riding. Make sure that you can ride wherever you want to go. We're going to have reflective sidewalls to keep you safe there, and they're highly puncture resistant. So we're going to go with either the Schwalbe Johnny Watts, or we'll go with the smoother Schwalbe Supermoto. Now, like I said, they both have the reflective sidewall, both 27.5. The Supermoto, I think, is about a 2.4-inch wide tire, so lots of width, again, for that stability and traction. It's not going to be slow. Even the Johnny Watts here at a 2.35, it's not slow or noisy. When we're riding on pavement, we're mostly on the middle section here, which is fairly continuous, so you don't get a lot of noise from that. But when you corner, you get into gravel, you get into mud or loose stuff, then these side lugs are going to help to grip, and even in snow, I found that these work quite well. So again, they are highly puncture resistant. They're a heavier duty e-bike specific tire. That means that they're not light. You know, if we want a really lightweight bike, then we go with cheap, thin tubes and thin tires, but then you have to replace them frequently. With these Johnny Watts, they're going to last a really long time and be highly puncture resistant, and in order to do that, they're a little bit heavier. We can run the tire pressure quite low on these, anywhere from 23 to 50 psi. On the Supermoto, it's really quite a fascinating tire, actually. It was inspired by the motorcycle world, really, and we kind of have this lip on here, which is really cool when you're cornering. It just gives you so much traction, but look how heavy duty that is. I mean, it's, again, highly puncture resistant, long lasting, gives you lots of traction, and really, if you're planning on riding in mud, or really slippery materials like wet leaves or things like that, then the Johnny Watts is maybe the way to go. If you're almost exclusively on hard packed gravel or pavement, the Supermoto is a nice tire. Of course, we can swap them for you, and again, they're Schwalbe tires, so pretty much available anywhere you need to get them. We really love having these frame locks built in and key-alike to the battery. It's super convenient because we just need one key for everything on the bike. And it's super convenient because the lock is always with you. You don't have to remember to bring it along. We'd simply put the key in this side, push this down while we're turning the key. It's going to put a steel bar right through the rear wheel there. That steel bar is going to keep the wheel from turning, so nobody can ride your bike away. So we call it a cafe lock because if that's all you're using for security, somebody could pick it up, put it in the back of their truck. So you want to keep your eye on it maybe while you're at the cafe. If you're leaving it for a longer period of time, then there's a port right here. Let me grab the chain and show you how that works. This is an optional security chain. We just loop it around a bike rack or whatever you're securing it to. And then this little plug just goes right into that hole. Once you push that in, it's locked. And again, we only have one key for the whole bike because this chain doesn't actually have a lock on it, which makes it a little bit lighter because the lock is already built into your bike. So this allows you to secure it to an object, plug it in, and now it's secure. And to ensure that you can use your bike for everything you want, we do have the full-length fenders there. Those are nice and stable and are going to keep you dry or riding in the rain or just through muck. We've got the adjustable length kickstand there, of course, at the back, so it's not going to collide with the pedals when you wheel the bike around. Very, very secure. And fantastic rack here. The rack actually has a spring on the top here, if you wish. We've got 2 rails here, so we can hang bags on here and then still have access to a trunk bag there. And this is actually a rack time compatible rack. A rack time rack means that it has these holes here in the rack on the top, and then you can get any sort of rack time compatible bag. This is a trunk bag, but we have pannier bags as well. And the bag basically has these little hooks here, and so we put the bag on top of the rack, slide it forward, and those little hooks in there go into those little holes, and it clicks into place, and now it's secure. And then you simply press the release tab. It's a little bit hard to do with one hand, but I'll just kind of demonstrate for you. There's the release tab. Press that and slide it off. So very easy. And of course, they have all sorts of different rack time compatible accessories. So let's take a closer look at the AES 400. For the display, we do have the EOX View 1300. It's quite a fascinating display because it is connected through Bluetooth to the drive unit. So you don't actually have to have it connected to the bike. You can remove it, and you could ride without it if you wish, because there are lights here that tells you your battery status and the level of assistance that you're in. You can also pair your phone with the bike or with the display as well to use that instead, but the display is quite informative, easy to read, nice big numbers up there. It's going to show us the assist level. When we change it, it'll flash to let us know what level it's in. We can turn that off if you wish, and that's where it's going to show us 1 bar for eco, 2 bars for normal, and full for high. Then we also have the battery level there, speed, the light status, the time, and then we've got a lot of information down here, such as the trip distance. You can cycle through other information like the ride time, average speed, maximum speed. This is one of my favorite features, oddly enough, is I like to know what the temperature is while I'm riding. You can see that. We've got your cadence, we've got your range, the date is on there, which needs to be corrected. This is where we can connect Komoot, so you can actually display directions on here as well. The Shimano system can also suggest that you should shift if you wish, and we're back to the trip distance. So if you download the Komoot app and pair it with the display, tell the app on your phone where you want to go. You don't have to keep your phone out. Put it in your pocket, and this is going to tell you, in 200 meters, turn right, and that sort of directions are on there. 400 series, we also have a good basic suspension C-post here, the Glide, a nice suspension fork, the RST Volant, so that does have a lockout where you can adjust that as well. And we do have a preload adjustment on the side. This Medica saddle, it's actually quite comfortable. A fair bit of gel in there. We've got a kind of ergonomic relief zone there as well. It's quite a nice saddle. Of course, you could always change them, but it is nice to know that the bike comes with a good saddle. And we have a really cool curved rear LED light here, so it's visible from the side as well. And we have a nice loud bell, easy to reach while you're riding, to warn others on the trail that you're coming. Now, all of the AES do have an adjustable angle stem. Interestingly, on the AES 400 Limited Edition, we actually have gone with a quill stem, which allows you to adjust the height. The rest of the AES, you're going to get a regular stem that isn't height adjustable, although you could add a stem riser if you wish, but it does have the angle adjustment. Now we're looking at the AES 400 Enviolo edition with the Enviolo hub. Obviously, it changes you to the Enviolo transmission. We also go with a little bit of a different saddle. We have the upgraded nog bell here. It's quite pretty, sounds really nice, has a nice long resonance. You'll notice the silver on there is kind of matched with the silver in the spacers in the headset and the silver on the C-post clamp. We also do a brighter front light on the Enviolo edition and an integrated brake light. And in fact, the rest of the AES are going to have that integrated brake light. One of the cool things we like about that brake light, it is using a accelerometer to sense when you're slowing down to brighten. That's preferable, in my mind, to having special brake levers, which often we have to do for a brake light, and then the brake lever has a special cable going through it, so when you activate the brake lever, it tells the brake light to activate. You know, it's really cool, except if you need to replace your brakes, it's pretty expensive. You have to get a special brake lever that has that cable, and not all bike shops have that. And, you know, if something goes wrong with the cabling or the wiring, it's wired through the bike, and it's a lot of work. So we love the simplicity of just regular old Shimano brakes and having an accelerometer in the brake light, so we don't have to worry about any sort of maintenance problems. So let's look at upgrading to the AES 900 or 990. The biggest difference, of course, is that Shimano EP8 motor. That's where I was telling you you're going to get 40% more hill climbing capability, those customizable levels with the two different profiles, and we've got the trail mode instead of normal. As well, with the AES 900, the base price is going to include a 504 watt-hour battery instead of the 418, and of course, on all the bikes you can upgrade to a 630 watt-hour. When we move up to the 990, obviously the biggest difference is that battery integration, integrated in the frame, and the base price includes that 630 watt-hour. We can't go with a smaller capacity battery. We also have this very cool upgraded display from Sigma. This is basically a bike computer, but it has offline maps, built-in GPS. Let's see if I can bring up the maps here. All of these screens are customizable, so there's loads of information that you can put on there and you can customize and have multiple screens. It'll keep track of all your rides. You can sync it with Komoot, of course, for directions, and Strava. They have their own Sigma cloud you can connect to, so after every ride it'll upload where you went, your calories burned, all of your stats. It's really quite extensive how much information is available in there, since it is basically like a traditional bike computer. Really big and easy to read, and again, those screens are customizable, so you can choose exactly what you want to see up there. On the 990, we've also upgraded the fork here. That's an air fork, so that allows us to put more air in or take more air out with a shock pump, and that can make the ride smoother or firmer. And we've got some adjustments down there, and we also have a remote lockout, so you can lock out the suspension fork while you're riding if you wish by activating that lever. I never do. I keep mine all open all the time, but we do have customers that, for efficiency reasons, feel that they're, like to have the fork locked out to try to save a little bit on battery. But personally, I'd rather just stay comfortable and leave it open, but it's certainly nice to have that option. We upgraded the suspension C-post here to this really great one from by Schultz. A nice spring in there, very, very comfortable. A nice, comfortable saddle as well. The front light we've upgraded to this IQXM, so it does have a high beam switch. One of the things I love about this high beam switch is it's green when you're on low beam, press it, and it's blue on high beam. The other high beam switches typically only turn blue when it's on, and then I'm kind of trying to remember, okay, is it on or is it off? So I really like having that green to tell me that my low beam is on. Two other upgrades on the AES 990 is this really heavy-duty adjustable angle stem. So we're up to a level 6 from Ergotech, which means it's very, very heavy-duty. You can ride really challenging terrain and not worry about that adjusting on you. And the other upgrade we've done is we've upgraded the brakes here. So they are still Shimano brakes, but they're the upgraded T6000 for even more stopping power. So now that I've gone through all of the details on the different models and all of the specs, I'm going to share a little bit more about Velo de Ville. I did a segment at Eurobike to share more about what I love about them. Then I'm going to do the ride test. If you want to skip over to the ride test, you can certainly do so. It's a lot of fun, and I think you'll enjoy coming along with me. I wanted to tell you about why we're so excited to be partnering with Velo de Ville. Originally, we were attracted to the customization that Velo de Ville offers. And so we put together the components that we need for bikes in Canada. Puncture-resistant tires, comfortable ergon grips, reliable maintenance-free drivetrains when we can, and of course, comfortable seats. Interestingly, you probably haven't heard of Velo de Ville. And that's because, in one way, they're really customer-centric. So they actually rely on their customers for their marketing, word of mouth. And it's very similar to what we do. Almost all of our business comes from customers referring their friends to us because they really are happy with our service. And that's the same thing we find with Velo de Ville. Sustainability is really important to Velo de Ville. So the bikes are made by people that are treated well, a company that cares about the community and the environment. When possible, they are using European parts. That results in lower emissions in transportation, but it's also supporting other businesses that care about their employees, about the community, about sustainability. And by caring, I mean they actually do care. 10% of their workforce, for example, are people with disabilities. They have people working from all sorts of different countries in their factory. They really focus on equal opportunity, they promote diversity, and they have zero tolerance for discrimination. They're passionate about striving for perfection, and of course, they're very, very high quality. Let me give you an example, if I can find it here, of the practical ways that they are looking at sustainability. This paint color, for example, is called Eco Gray, and so the idea came about from one of their employees. And this is the great thing when you get your employees actively involved in your business, and you care about them, they care about you, they care about your customers, they care about the product, and so you get this collaboration happening where they said, look, Velo de Ville does all their own painting in-house. At the end of the day, they had leftover paint from overspray, and so what they did is they actually gathered up that extra, turned it into this beautiful eco-gray color. So this is basically the leftover paint from all the different colors makes this beautiful color, and that means there's no waste. They're not throwing out the excess paint. They're able to reuse it in this beautiful color here. So for the ride test, I'm riding the KES 990. Of course, the frame design and the riding position, the experience is going to be very similar with all of the KES series, whether it be the 400, 900, or 990. Of course, with the 990 here, I do have the higher torque motor from Shimano, a few other upgrades, the higher capacity battery, the upgraded display, a bit of a cushier air fork, and a few other things. You can find all the details, the differences between them on our website, of course, but the riding position and everything else will be very similar. Now, one of the things I love about the Enviolo system is I didn't downshift before I stopped there. I was able to go ahead and shift to an easier gear before starting out. With a regular gear system, you're kind of having to anticipate when you're going to stop, downshift to an easier gear so that when you get going, it's easy to start pedaling. With the Enviolo system, of course, you can shift while you're stopped, which is fantastic. So I can go ahead, come to a stop, then shift my gears. It's a nice feature because sometimes maybe you're distracted and you forget to downshift, or you have to stop suddenly. Or just if you're in a busy traffic, it's nice not having to worry about gear shifting and just paying attention to what's going on around you. So I'm actually taking you out on our test ride route that you would ride if you came to the store to try out the bikes. Heading down to sea level, that way we've got a nice big hill to climb, a few hills to climb on our way back. And fantastic stopping power going down the hills there. Again, I can shift while I'm stopped. Brakes are very confidence inspiring, so you can go quickly and not worry about being able to stop. But really what you notice right away when you get on the bike is how comfortable it is. It's a really nice, upright, relaxed riding position, very, very comfortable and enjoyable. This is a good place to turn around now that we're at sea level, so we'll be heading uphill, and it's pretty here too with the beach, the playground. All right, and so we'll be heading up a few different hills here. For that, we'll try out the boost setting. It's funny, I slow down for those curbs, but the suspension between the suspension fork and the suspension seat post is so comfortable that I really don't have to do that. It really is soaking up all those bumps for me. So on the hill here, I've got boost, and the nice thing about the Shimano motor is you can hear it a little bit once you're in boost. When you're in trail and eco, you hardly hear it at all. It is one of the quieter motors in my experience riding them. The other things I love about the Enviolo is this hill had kind of a variable grade. And on a regular bike, you may find, with the regular drivetrain, that you shift to an easier gear, it's too easy, go back to the hard gear, too hard. With this, I'm just constantly making these little adjustments if I wish. Obviously, you don't have to, but it really helps you to dial in exactly, where you want to have your cadence, which is fantastic. Despite the upright riding position, I do feel I have a lot of control over the bike. So we don't have a tremendous sweep on the handlebars, which is nice, just enough to put you in that relaxed riding position. And instead, the frame design really helps to put you in that riding position without the compromises that can happen with really swept back bars. So back there, I kind of had a little barrier to go through. And one of the things you'll notice on some bikes that are upright, if you've got really swept back bars, it can actually be a little bit harder to control the bike, especially in, tricky sections of a trail or in an urban environment. Even though we're in an upright position, they've really designed the bike that it handles really well. Right now I'm on pavement. In a few minutes, I'm going to transition to some gravel. Then I'm going to take you on a little bit of a mountain bike trail just to show you that the bike is very, very capable of pretty much anything you want to throw at it. Yeah, it's a really interesting bike because it just feels so relaxing but sporty as well, right? So it's upright, relaxed riding position, but I feel like I can be very sporty in it. It's quite an interesting combination. I'm riding with the Johnny Watts tires. I don't hear any noise from them. Sometimes people are concerned about going with a knobby tire. They think, oh, it's going to be slow or it's going to be noisy. These, I don't hear any noise at all. I don't feel that they're slow, but it is nice to have that extra traction. Now, if you're always riding on dry pavement, then maybe you don't need them. But if you get into wet situations, gravel, mud, it is kind of nice having them. Okay, so I'm going to start from a stop here, up a bit of a climb. I'll put it up onto turbo. See if we have any success with the gradient showing up on the display, because it is hard to tell in the video sometimes, but I am gotta have a long climb here. Go find a couple other long steep hills for you, but this is really easy. I don't have to be in my easiest gear ratio. Turbo makes it really easy. With the AES 400, of course, you're gonna have that lower torque motor, but even on a hill like this, I don't think you'll run into any problems. You'll probably end up going a little bit slower and probably in an easier gear. Here I'm just flying, 16, 17 kilometers an hour, 18, and that's in boost. Really easy. So now we're on a gravel path here, which demonstrates the versatility of the AES series, of course. It's an all-around e-bike, and really it can handle pretty much anything. I won't be doing any big jumps or anything like that, but I'll do a little bit of off-road riding in addition to this gravel path. Got a big puddle back there with some mud at the bottom. It's where it is nice having these Johnny Watts tires. Didn't notice any loss of traction or control. They grip really well. And of course, these full coverage fenders mean that I'm staying dry. Bike might get a little bit dirty with me running through the puddles, but I'm staying dry, which is great. Here's another interesting benefit of the Enviolo hub. Right now I'm heading down this hill and I've got a climb coming up afterwards. On a regular drivetrain, I would actually be braking and pedaling at the same time, because of course in a regular drivetrain you have to pedal in order to change gears, and you of course want to be in easier gear to make it up the hill. With the Enviolo, of course, you can shift while you're pedaling, and so as I'm shift while you're not pedaling, while you're coasting. So while I'm coasting down that hill, I don't have to brake and pedal at the same time to change gears. It seems like a silly thing to mention, but it's actually quite nice. Again, one of the nice things about the Enviolo system is it's just a very relaxing ride, because you don't have to think about changing your gears all the time. Of course, as an all-around bike, it works great for commuting and city riding. Again, a nice upright visible riding position means I can easily see traffic. I'm not hunched over, and it makes me quite visible to be easily seen by motorists. Outfitted, of course, with the light, rack, kickstand, everything you need. Easily do grocery shopping, ride home at night. This particular, the AES 990, has a very bright high beam, which is great. But all the models, of course, have a light bright enough to get you home in the dark. Of course, this would also make a great touring bike with that high-capacity battery. You can ride all day. With the comfort, of course, it also means you can easily ride all day. You've got the rack there. You can put a trunk bag on top and bags on the side. Bring all your gear. It certainly would be a very enjoyable touring bike. So normally this trail isn't actually muddy, but it's interesting this time of year, a lot of the leaves that fell in the fall are kind of starting to disintegrate, and as a result it gets really mucky. And that's again one of the beauties of having the Johnny Watts tires, is they're going to grip in really well. I'm going fast, cornering, stopping. I'll have lots of stopping power. It's fantastic that way. Having a bit of a challenge with the camera here. I'm trying to hang on to the selfie stick while I'm riding, so in case you're wondering why I'm swerving all over the place, I'm experimenting with different camera positions and trying to keep you out of the trees. So for this portion of the ride test, I'm going to take you on some off-road sections, a little bit of light mountain biking, just to show you that it is in fact an all-around bike. If all you're doing is commuting to work, touring, no problem. But if you do want to get into stuff like this, you can see in here the leaves are very wet today, so very slippery, but no problem. Lots of traction with these Johnny Watts tires. Have to come back down this way, but of course not concerned because I've got some really good brakes on here. That air fork up front is soaking up all the bumps and roots and rocks in the trail here quite nicely. And the suspension C-post means I don't have to get off my saddle. And of course the motor means I don't have to get off the saddle for climbing and just put it onto trail. If you hear a little bit of rattling, it's actually my Ortlieb bag on the back rack there. I haven't adjusted it so that it doesn't rattle. Just something I may stop and do in a little while, but I'm having too much fun here on the climb. I don't know if you can hear the muck under my tires. It's really wet and slippery, but no problems with traction yet. And of course the climb is super easy with the turbo mode here from the Shimano motor. One of the things I like about the Shimano motor is I can use two different profiles. So if I've got a short ride, I want to go fast, I could have a profile where, say on eco and trail, I have a higher level of assistance than what comes from factory because I'm not concerned about range and I just want to go fast. And then on my second profile, I can say I want less power on eco and trail, keep the power on boost for the big hills, and that way I'm going to use less battery if I'm doing a really long ride. And you can easily adjust that through the app, which is pretty cool. Oh, that was a lot of fun. When you get an e-bike, of course, especially something with the motor like the Shimano's EP8 here, it's as much fun going up as it is going down. So now we'll head down the climb, and you'll notice there's some tricky narrow sections here, and the bike's performing really well, handles everything superbly. I'd be hesitant to do this with a lot of other very upright kind of step through comfort oriented bikes because you're probably going to end up running into some stability problems, but this is just handling it so well. The geometry of the bike, the stability of the bike, the wide tires help, of course, the suspension fork, all of that comes together to make it a very, very capable bike. It's always interesting talking with customers a year or two after they've got their e-bike, because often, they start out with some fairly basic rides in mind, and as they become more confident and realize, how far they can go and how much they can explore, they're always surprised in a year or two to come back and tell me about all the adventures they are having on their e-bike that they didn't think they would have. And that's the nice thing about getting the right bike from the start. If you can get a bike that's going to handle all of those things for you, even if you don't plan on it, maybe you'll never see trails like this, but maybe you'll have to go onto the shoulder because somebody's passing too close or something like that. It's nice knowing that you have a bike that can handle all of that. It's a lot of fun. This is one of my favorite things to do, is just come ride through the forest, enjoy the beauty of nature, and not worry at all about climbing the hills afterwards. So that concludes our ride test. If you have any questions, of course, you can head over to our website at citracycles.ca. You'll find all of the details there. If you're in Canada, we're happy to ship to you anywhere in Canada, almost fully assembled, and answer any questions you have. If you're from outside of Canada, just contact your local Velo de Ville dealer. They'll be able to help you out. And here I am pedaling up to about 40 kilometers an hour, over 40, 42. No problem with the Enviolo. Probably by about 50 kilometers, my legs would have been spinning too quickly to bother trying to provide input to the bike, although at 50 kilometers an hour, a lot of our customers are braking. But yeah, it's not a problem to provide the power with the Enviolo. I did forget to talk about the gear ratio earlier. Sorry about that. No problem on the hills either, obviously, so that 380% gear ratio does really well. Heading down that hill at the 42 kilometers an hour, had no concerns, felt very stable, very safe, knew I'd be able to stop with the brakes, no problem. With the suspension, C-post and fork, wide tire, wasn't worried about hitting bumps in the pavement and getting thrown off my bike. It's another downhill section I'll pedal through to see how fast I can go. There, my legs are spinning pretty quickly now. I was up to almost 50, I think. At that point, yeah, you're probably better off just coasting. But it is fun if you really want to give it a lot of power and get going fast. You can certainly do that. So the gearing is quite good that way. The transition between 32, when the motor stops assisting, by law the motor needs to stop assisting at 32 kilometers an hour, it's very smooth. You hardly notice it. If you're, of course, on boost, then you're going to hear the motor kind of fade away. If you're on trail or eco, you probably won't hear it. You may not even feel it. As I transitioned there up to 34 from 30, didn't feel it at all. Riding with the assistance off, of course. There it is, off. No drag. It's a little bit of a heavier bike because of the motor and the battery, but otherwise it rides just fine.